you will survive here without German, but you won't live here. Germans are more reserved, so they won't immediately let you into their circle. People can be very rigid and they don't want to be flexible. There is this thing that you have to be on time and be prepared for long wait times. But a few years ago, there was this meme, study or you will work in McDonald's. So when I came to Germany, my first job was in McDonald's. My course was in English here, by the way. And additionally, you had to show you have a certain amount of funding with you. I'm very thankful to that company and I'm very glad I got to work there. But I was relatively able to find apartments easily, even when I moved from one place to another. I was able to afford everything, even in a student's salary. It reminds me of a quote from Lenin who said that there are decades where nothing happens, and then there are weeks where decades happen. I feel like last 5 years have been like these weeks. So, my name is Mayank. I'm originally from India. I have been in Germany for about 6 years now. I came here to do my master's, and very recently I finished my master's. I'm a mechanical engineer. I have a bachelor in mechanical engineering, and I did my master's in optical technologies. So I've recently finished it, and I'm in the process of looking for a full-time job. I'm originally from north of India, but I have lived all over India, primarily in bigger cities. And I like to say I'm from Bangalore, which is a very huge IT city, also known for its breweries. And other cities I have lived are Chennai, which is like the port city, similar to Hamburg in Germany. And one more city I would say is Vadodara, which is in the west of India. And yeah, that's about me, I would say, for starters.
Why chose Germany?
As I started by saying that I'm a mechanical engineer and I wanted to improve I wanted to do my master's in mechanical engineering initially. And Germany is known for its mechanical engineering. And I also thought to myself that this would be a good opportunity for me to see the world. And this was an easy way for me. And there was also advertisements and everything by the German government in our universities that they wanted to have students from India. So I took advantage of this opportunity. So,
And why did you choose Hanover and not other places like Munich or Berlin?
actually, I did get the option to study in a couple of places. I got the chance to go to Augsburg, which is in south of Germany, in Bochum, which is in North Rhine-Westphalia, and I didn't choose Berlin or Munich primarily because I had heard they are very expensive cities, and I thought as a student I will have to, manage my own expenses. So this was an easier opportunity. And Hanover I chose primarily because the brochure for Hanover was really beautiful. It was a very beautiful green city, and I am a huge fan of technology. So I knew about the Hanover Messe, which is a very big technology fair, and Hanover is known for its fairgrounds. So I thought to myself, yeah, Hanover is a nice place to go to. And one more personal reason would be I'm a big fan of Scorpions, the band Scorpions. So they come from Hanover, and I just thought, okay, Hanover is the place I want to be.
How hard was to integrate in the society?
It was not so hard, I would say, not as hard as I thought it would be. But in this case, I would say I was lucky because when I came over here, I lived with a German family, and their kids were about my age. So initially, of course, there was a period of getting to know each other, but it was much easier than I thought it would be. I would say the only main difficulty in the beginning was the language, but eventually I do speak German now. And having in the beginning, as I told you, I have lived all over India. So I was kind of used to integrating to the local culture. So I would say it wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be.
Have you had any stereotypes regarding Germany?
Oh, yes, of course. Um, I always assumed Germans were very stiff people, and they were very cold, and they were, of course, there is this thing about they have no sense of humor. The other thing was, I know that they loved beer, so they will always be drinking. And I took this as a positive stereotype because when I was new here, I used to kind of drink like every day until my landlady and everyone told me to stop because they thought I was an alcoholic. So I had to eventually, of course, I cut it down, and then I pretty much don't drink anymore. But this was a stereotype, I would say, and I would say most of it is false.
So the drinking culture in India is different than here?
Yes, it is very different. I would say in India, we drink to get drunk. So your main idea is like, okay, today is a day off or it's a vacation time. Let's just drink to really lose your senses, I would say. And in Germany, it's more like a social drinking atmosphere. You don't like always drink to get drunk. You are basically just meeting with your friends or with your family, and then you're just drinking. And it's not really like mandatory for you to drink, which is what I thought was the culture, but it's not really as strict as I thought it was. So it's very different, I would say. Yeah, the philosophies are very different in this case.
How about the social life? Is it easy to make German friends?
I would say there is a curve, a learning curve of sorts. Germans are more reserved, so they won't immediately let you into their circle when you meet them. So you have to have some kind of repertoire with them, as in you're meeting them on a regular basis. So, you know, you have to establish some level of trust. So maybe you're going to, say, a fitness studio or in the office or in the university if you're meeting them. So only then they get a bit more comfortable in letting you in. Although I would argue that sometimes you do meet people outside when on weekends or something, and they immediately let you in, but after the weekend is over, they never call you again. So if you want to make friends for life and everything, you have to take your time. That is like um, this difficulty graph of sort, I will say, but it's not as difficult, I would say. Mhm.
What do you think is difficult here in Germany compared to India?
I would say the rigidness of people. It's very sometimes it's people can be very rigid and they don't want to be flexible. So there is this thing that you have to be on time, and it's often seen as like a taboo if you're late or something. So I have never experienced this myself because I was mostly on time and I never had this kind of difficulties. But I have known that people get very rigid if they are if something goes against their timetable. A lot of things can happen, especially recently there have been U-Bahn strikes and everything. And there have been chances that even though Germany has amazing public transport, sometimes some accidents happens on the road and things become late. And most of the time, if you have an appointment, they do not reaccommodate you until say next week or this one, even though you're basically late by maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So this can improve a little bit, I would say, rigidity. And one more thing I have noticed is like there is a nihilism in people that things are bad and it's only going to get worse. This attitude is a bit upsetting sometimes because you can actually be a bit more positive in life. So I'm not talking about toxic positivity, but in general, like Germans love to complain and they are actually proud of this, I would say. But it's also nice if you can actually think a bit positive in life and do some positive things in life, because they are doing more positive things. It's just they're not openly, they're not saying it as part of their humility. And I guess as a foreigner sometimes it becomes too nihilistic for me.
What was the best experience you had here?
Oh, there were a few, but there is one which really stands out. When so at the moment we are in northern Germany, Hanover region. So Hanover has a tradition. Northern Germany, if you turn 30 and if you're a male, you have to sweep the Rathaus floor. Rathaus is basically your government building, where the mayor sits. So usually you have to sweep the floor of the Rathaus, and from what I understood, no German has in my group had ever done this. But because I was the only outsider, they threw me a surprise party, which I wasn't aware of. And we have a group of Indians, Italians, and Germans. So one evening there was a knock. It was just before my birthday. Everyone showed up, which was an absolute surprise. And we had a table and everything reserved. And they got me very drunk. And after getting me very drunk, some guys took me to the men's room. They put me in a sheep costume. They paraded me around the city, and then they forced me to sweep the Rathaus floor. And this was during November and it was really cold, and I was only wearing a sheep costume. So I have a feeling that this was the time when Germans the only time Germans remember their culture is when there is a foreigner in the group. And this completely shattered my belief that Germans don't have a sense of humor, because that is their sense of humor, I would say.
Do you imagine yourself remaining here in Germany for long?
I would say yes, for the moment, yes. How long will depend on how the economy is and how I find a job, where the job is, and where I'm basically needed. So I would say I'm flexible. I would love to be in Germany because I'm integrated to the German culture. I have worked in German company as a student, of course, for the last 2 years. So I have a idea how things work in Germany. So moving out would be a bit, starting from zero again in sometimes. So I see myself staying here for a while. Yes.
Can you describe to me the process of you becoming a student and coming here and then working for a German company? How was the experience? What you had to do to accomplish this?
I did my master's in optical technologies, and for people who don't know what optical technologies is, like the camera you're using right now, it's how the camera is manufactured. So how do you manufacture things relating to optics, like the camera, how the light is basically transferred, and how the image is produced on the screen on the other side. So you can see it has a very wide range of application, and it's used everywhere. So to get into this particular field of study, you need to have a background in mechanical engineering or electronic engineering, and have knowledge of physics. So it combines three fields into one. So as I said, I'm a mechanical engineer. I had good grades. I speak good English. My course was in English here, by the way. And additionally, you had to show you have a certain amount of funding with you, especially coming from countries from non-EU. You are supposed to show, I don't remember the exact amount then, but now, but I think then the amount was about 8,000 euros you need to have in your account. And once you show your that you're stable financially and you have the right degree and you have like good grades and everything, you just apply for the course and the university says yes or no. And in my case, as I initially told you, a lot of universities were willing to take me, and I chose Hanover. During my study period, it was very different from India because the Indian system is way more rigid. It's more like a schooling system. So you're basically moving from a smaller school to a bigger school. So you have like periods, 45 minutes, and then immediately another class, another class, another class. Whereas in Germany, it's more flexible. You can choose which modules you want to do. So in the beginning, I was a bit confused. I basically did the modules which my colleagues were doing. But after a while, I realized, okay, I wanted to take my career into a particular field within this. I wanted to study more about, say, robotics. and most of them wanted to study more about primarily just optics. So I wanted to combine robotics and optics and see where, if I can do that, and it's possible over here. So I took some modules which I wanted to do, and afterwards, after you finish the necessary points, I would guess, I don't remember the exact number, even though I recently completed the studies. The overall credits you need to do for completing masters is 120 points, and I guess 75 is for the subjects you take. Afterwards, you need to do a 4 practicum, which is like a pre-internship. Then you do a main practicum, which is like the internship period, about 6 months. So 3 months plus 6 months, and then you do a student project, which can be again 6 months. So understand that if you have already got job experience in India or any other country you come from, you can completely skip 4 practicum. You can use this as an experience. But even though I had job experience, it wasn't in technical field. And main point, as I said, to come to Germany was to learn the German practical atmosphere. Mm-hmm. So I did all the 3 over here, and afterwards I finished it. Now I'm looking for a job, but where I did my internship, they really liked me, the student project, and I actually got a very good grade over there. I got the 1.0 over there, so they really liked my work, and they asked me if I was interested in doing my master thesis there. And so I did my master thesis, my job, and everything else over there, and all my office experience was also from that company, I would say.
Why haven't remained there?
Well, it's primarily a research institute. So I didn't see myself going into PhD. I mean, I was interested in PhD for a while, but there was the other thing that they offer you yearly contracts. And I was thinking to myself that if I stay with yearly contract, I will have to renew my visa over and over and over again. And I thought to myself that, okay, I need something with a bit more stability. They did offer me a position there. I mean, they said that because my master thesis was pretty good, they hinted, and I would say that, okay, if you want, you can continue your research on this. But I told you the way the employment contract goes, it was like on a yearly basis. And this would have affected my visa. And I thought to myself that it's not going to be easy working over here. I'm very thankful to that company, and I'm very glad I got to work there. But this was not just limited to me, it was also limited to the Germans who were working there. So everyone had the same system. So it wasn't like separate or special for myself.
Can you give me some details what exactly you've done in the company?
The company where I worked for is a research institute, and they specialize in usage of lasers and on how to generate the laser, how to use the laser, and how to like improve upon the laser. Mm-hmm. So laser is used everywhere nowadays, at least. So my job primarily was to develop a system which was used for laser weeding systems. So you have a field where you have crops growing up, and there are also crops which you don't want to grow. They are called weeds. So normally, to get rid of these weeds, you use herbicides, or you have to hire people to like pull them out. Mm-hmm. So the problem with using herbicides is, first of all, they are chemicals, and then they are bad for the atmosphere. They are bad for the soil health and everything. So, and not only that, they're also quite expensive. So the idea was that we develop a robotic system which goes over the field, and it just spots the weed and it burns it. Mm-hmm. And it does it really fast. The advantage of the system is, of course, it's fast, it's better for the environment, but at the same time, it's less labor intensive. So you might ask me that, why don't we hire people to do this? I mean, people need jobs, but this is where the uniqueness of this project comes into play. The uniqueness is that Europe and West as a whole, the demographic is declining, the working age population is declining. And this became even more notable during the COVID time, because you couldn't bring workers from nearby European countries for like larger countries like, say, Netherlands or Germany. So the farmers had to do this themselves. But instead, imagine having a robotic system that goes over the field, spots the weed by itself, and burns it. So with the advances in artificial intelligence, it was easy to identify the weeds. My job specifically was, for my student project, was to develop a smaller version of this as a display model and a working display model to show the people who are coming to, say, the expo and thing, like if we have our company at an expo, that okay, this is our bigger system over here, we can't run this in the expo over here because it might set the carpet on fire, but here's a smaller version of this. So this is how it works. So we would actually put a sample weed inside and it would immediately detect which one is the weed, and it will automatically target and burn them. So this was the smaller version I built. I was very happy to have worked in this because I genuinely felt that I was doing something in the 21st century with like modern technology, and something for the benefit of the agriculture system, and for overall, for the environment and earth. So this was a very, very good experience, I would say.
What advices will you give to an Indian person who wants to come and study here?
The important advice I will give them is to learn the language, of course. My course was in English, so you will survive here without German, but you won't live here. So there is a difference between surviving and living. So you will survive, but you won't have a life. So make sure you learn the language, learn the culture. Culture is also very important. So the way the body language works, the way people interact with each other, sometimes German directness is very known. So sometimes we may perceive the directness as rude, and they might perceive your indirectness as rude. So try to find a middle ground and, try to work with the culture over here. So make sure you learn the culture over here. Also learn the etiquettes, how you work. The supermarkets are very fast over here, so try not to shy away. Try not to be shy. That in India we usually have a person who bags it for you. Here they are basically, it's a race. So yeah, that is something I would say. Learn the culture, learn the language, do your research well, like what you need once you come to Germany. So instead of having to ask in 10 different groups and 10 different people, getting different information, it's much easier if you do everything beforehand.
How is financially Germany compared to India?
It entirely depends on what kind of job you are doing in India and where you are doing it. So I would say if you have like engineer job in a middle tier city like something like Hanover, like city in India, you will have a fairly decent life. I would say rather good life, but you won't really the rent. If you say you're living in a bigger city like Chennai or Bangalore or something, the rents are quite high over there. I would say sometimes the rents are as high as what you'll pay in Hanover. So make sure that you have a good job in India. But if you are doing this in Germany as well, it again depends on what is your job and where exactly you're working, which city you're working in. Let's say you asked me in the beginning, why didn't you choose Berlin or München? So this was a prerequisite I took beforehand because I knew as an outsider, it will take me a while to find an apartment. And Germans also have a system called Schufa where they check your credit score. So you can't really show a credit score just when you're coming over here. So this was something also I needed to take in account. And Hanover I would say is a pretty in the middle, because I was relatively able to find apartments easily even when I moved from one place to another. I was able to afford everything, even in a student salary. And It was okay. It wasn't difficult. It was fair, is the word I would say. But I assume once I work full time, and I know people who work full time, if they choose to live in cities like Hanover, they have a comfortable life.
What do you think about the German health insurance?
I would say Germany is pretty good. And as I said, if you speak the language, it's even better. The only gripe I would say is like it's very difficult to get your appointment on time. So, as I said, Hanover is middle tier city. I was relatively again lucky because I knew some doctors from the very beginning over here, and there are many doctors that give you appointment on the spot. So, oh, by the way, Doctor Lib app is your friend over here, so make sure you get that. You don't have to speak any German. You can just do everything online over here. So Germany is finally coming to 21st century, I would say. So that'll be your help. Otherwise, I would say be prepared for long wait times. Very recently I had to get a gastroscopy done, and I went to the doctor in February and I had my gastroscopy in May. So
That's still good.
That is still good. Yes, for Hanover. Yes. For Hanover, I would say it's pretty good. And I have heard stories that doctors are rude and all this. I didn't ever have this problem. I usually think if you don't speak any language, it's difficult for the doctor to translate some things for you. So once again, just make sure you learn some language or at least get some German friends to come with you for the doctor's appointment.
For the future, do you plan to have the citizenship?
For now, I think I'm almost qualified because I still need to work 2 years full time. But India does not allow dual citizenship, so I will have to give away my Indian citizenship. It entirely depends on if I'm in Germany, if I'm working in Germany, if I'm happy with my job, and if they don't need me to relocate. So there are a lot of factors in play over here. It reminds me of a quote from Lenin who said that there are decades where nothing happens, and then there are weeks where decades happen. I feel like last 5 years have been like these weeks. So many things have happened in the last 5 years. So for now, I would just leave this question up in the air. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm also not for it at the moment.
From your experience in India and different cities, in Germany, what life lesson would you give?
What life lesson I would give? I would firstly say, don't assume. This was a quote from a subject I took during my master's study. The study it was an optional subject, but it was mandatory. It was called intercultural competence, where how people between different cultures communicate. And I'm basically plagiarizing this statement saying, don't assume. So don't make any assumption about anyone you meet, any person you meet. So because people come from different cultures, the way they interact with each other is completely different. So I may be using my hands to communicate now, but some other culture might see it as a completely offensive thing. So just don't assume. That is one thing. And the other thing I would say is like, I have learned a lot more empathy after living in Germany.
Wow.
I would say India has a very hierarchical system. So even if you are living in big cities, so there is a general hierarchy that if there is a boss, he's your boss. You don't really talk back to him. If there's a professor, he's your professor. You don't talk back to him. Although I did have outliers over there because there were a lot of professors I knew in India who were very, very friendly to us, who are very similar to what I mean in Germany. And I don't know if you know this, but a few years ago there was this meme: study or you will work in McDonald's. So when I came to Germany, my first job was in McDonald's. And after having worked over there, you realize that everyone is going through some level of struggle. Most of us were also students doing engineering, doctorate, and everything. But the more you work on the same level with people of different background, different countries, you start developing more empathy like this. So I guess it equalizes you in all the forms. And one of the jobs I had very recently was I had to work as auf Deutsch wir sagen Messeaufbauinspektor. So in English it would be construction inspector. So usually, as I told you in the beginning, that Hanover is known for its large fairgrounds, and we have people from all over the world coming and building their stands for their companies. So my job was to make sure everyone is building as per German standards, which are very high. So if they are not, you have to tell them this. And had I not worked in McDonald's and developed this empathy, you know, I would have had a hierarchical mindset over there. And my bosses there told me that, see, never tell anyone that I'm your boss, always call me your colleague, because otherwise people who come from outside Germany will not take you seriously. So there was this, you know, this empathy for the other person, which I developed more. I'm not saying I was a cruel person in India, but this is something I would say about myself, that I have become more empathetic towards people.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.